so now we're prepared to talk about spiritual nutrition. And what I'm showing you here is nadis. The two snakes represent the nadis. They're coming together at the third eye kind of level here. And where they cross is the chakra levels. And the name of the game is to clear the nadis so that everything becomes energized. The two wings are the right and left side of the brain, and that you can barely see it, but in the very center of that yellow column going up is the Brahma Nadi, and that's a subtle nadi, goes all the way to the merging of the, it looks like Star of David, but it's the higher forces coming down to meet the lower forces in the kind of the Om understanding of things. But the Brahma Nadi is the only nadi that goes beyond the third eye. And these are things you experience in meditation, and they really exist. I mean, that's how I know about it, because I experience it, but I look it up. Next slide, please. So what we're going for in, let's say, the Ayurvedic system is the word ojas. It's the deep primordial vigor and reserve. Deep primordial vigor and reserve. The deep life force. In Chinese medicine, it's called jing. You'll want to build the jing. We have prenatal and postnatal. And why that's important is you can build the ojas and the postnatal jing. That's your overall life force, okay? And even if you're not genetically given a lot of the ojas, you can build it. And that's the key here. That's the point. It's always an optimism. You can do this. Next slide. So let's look at the ojas building foods. Ojas is deeper than sexual energy. Okay, but sexual energy is a reflection of the ojas or of the jing. And then above jing comes chi. So jing is deeper. So what are your really good things? The omega, long chain omega-3s, the plant-based protein, which is very different than animal-based protein. I mentioned bee pollen. Some people think, well, that's not vegan. Some people say it is. You can also get vegan that's not been activated by the bees. Blue-green algae, E3 live, chlorella, spirulina. These are high concentrate proteins. An egg's 44% protein, but chlorella is up to 65, 70, and spirulina 65, 70% protein, depending, but it's about 95% assimilated, where an egg is maybe 12% assimilated. Coconut oil, hemp seed oil, some of these are oil, avocado, nut and seed milks. Those are your, kind of high level, deep building foods. Herbs, I'm not going to go, of course, but shatavari, and then your the ginseng, maca from South America, licorice rhodiola, which is very active, goji berries, which people don't think is herb, but it's one of the top 3 longevity herbs, astragalus, the immune, reishi, schizandra, and gymnostimia. I know more about gymnostimia because it's really good for diabetes as well. Now, what also builds it? Adequate sleep. In general, even though you can get away with less sleep, the research suggests people need about 7 hours. And they need that 7 hours somewhere between, around 10:30 to 2:30. Those are your high rebuilding hours. And that builds your serotonin as well. Love of God, sexual balance, meaning the right balance can increase your ojas, excess will decrease it. Moderate lifestyle. I see people working that just work too hard. And how do you know you're working too hard? Because you feel tired. How do you know you're not working too hard? You feel really good all the time. You don't get tired. That's how you do it. It's clinically based. It's not like there's a one formula. And one of the messages I'm giving is there's no one formula about this. But if you're feeling full of energy all the time, you know you're on the right track. Okay? And that's good. And then minimizing the news and sense control and things like that. Now, what depletes it? Overworking, too much restraint, not enough sleep. Drug use is one of the big things that deranges that, what we call prana and tejas, the fire, as well as ojas. The prana, tejas, and ojas are the three kind of big elements when we talk about energies. And tejas is like the fire. Prana is like the air element. So drug use is very, very depleting. And it takes a year or two to build people back. You can do it. I do it all the time for people, but it takes a while. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's look again about a vegan lifestyle because we need to see the big picture here. First, it preserves the germ cell. That's the part that we reproduce, the sperm and the ovum. And it gives us healthy reproduction. They did a study, and that's why I want to make a little clarity. They studied women who were eating kind of food that wasn't organic, and they had a very high percentage of infertility. And when they were switched to organic food and just fruits and vegetables, they had significant improvement in fertility. That's what we're talking about. Personal health, vitality, and energy. Okay, so we know, people on a vegan diet, because they didn't say live food, they have 32% less heart disease. High blood pressure is 26% meat eaters, 2% in vegans. Okay, osteoporosis, 4 times higher in meat eaters, men and women. Diabetes, 35 to 50% more diabetes in meat eaters. So those are just some examples. It's pretty big. Feeds the hungry. Well, if the whole world were vegan, we would have enough food to feed the world 7 times over. We wouldn't be talking about starvation. The data is variable, whether it's 20 million or 40 million people starving to death each year. And of course, all the stuff they're talking about today, we're really talking about enough food to feed everybody if we went vegan, because the animal agriculture takes about 70% of the arable land. Vegan agriculture takes 5%. So first, we have a lot more land. Water, it's about 4,500 gallons of water versus 300 gallons for vegans. So whether it's 14 times less, roughly speaking. So that's pretty significant. So you need less land and less water. We can feed everybody. And if it were all live food, it'd be 12 times. So enough food to feed the world 12 times order. And then we're hearing all the time, we're going to have famine, we're going to have that. Well, that's because of how they've arranged it, and because people aren't really, being vegan and or live food. Okay, obviously it protects against animal cruelty. It preserves the ecology, as I'm explaining, because you're using up a whole lot less resources in the big picture, and it maintains and protects, in essence, the computer mind. So this is helps protect the whole world, really. And we're seeing a collapse of that. If everybody said we're going to deal this by going vegan, it would change the politics in a big way. Next slide, please. So we're talking about the consciousness of sovereignty, yama and yamas, the do's and don'ts, the 10 speakings or commandments, inner peace, because you're not taking death in. I mentioned nadis and koshas, layers of the mind. Nadis were what we talked about, Ida Pingala. And basically, it's a diet most associated with spirituality and enlightenment in all the in all the traditions. Next slide, please. So, but here's the attitude. That's where people get in trouble. It's not about moral superiority. It's about being responsible for the impact of our actions. Hey, if you can feed the world 7 times over by being vegan, well, that's a good idea. And 12 times over by being, live food, that's a good idea. You're being responsible for the result of your actions. And that's really the point of that. And the water, I mentioned 300 gallons of water versus 4,500. It's like, oh, it's a big difference in terms of the world having limited fresh water.